Good morning. Greetings from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore. We have done a series of modules on the discrete Fourier transform. We have seen to relate it to the frequency, the analog frequency, the sampling frequency. And we have also seen how to compute it by using the normal equation or an efficient method of computing using the DIT or the DIF FFT algorithm. This is the last module in the series in the topic on discrete Fourier transform, and today we shall just take up some examples. We shall take up some examples to take a signal and observe its spectrum, and we'll also see that the DFT takes more time as compared to computing the spectrum of a signal using the fast Fourier transform. So this is the last module in on the series on discrete Fourier transform. So as the first example, let's try to let's take up a signal x of t. Let's take a cosine signal, say cos 2 pi, say fmt, some cosine signal of frequency fm, and I will take some sampling frequency fs, a suitable sampling frequency, and I'll define my time in the interval of say 0 to 1 second. And for this signal, I am going to compute an endpoint DFT. First, how do I compute the endpoint DFT? I will create a matrix. We saw that, so we are going to create the DFT matrix, the endpoint DFT matrix. And then after create this DFT matrix is going to be of size n cross n, the DFT matrix. And after creating the DFT matrix, I will multiply by my sequence xn, which is sampled signal of x of t, and then get the spectrum of the signal. So when I multiply the DFT matrix by my sequence x of n, I am going to get my the DFT, the endpoint DFT x of k. From this x of k, I can now get the spectrum by simply mapping 0 to n as the interval and relating it to the sampling frequency fs. So this we have seen earlier, but today what we are going to see is how to get the spectrum, and we'll also see what's the time taken in computing this n cross n matrix. Later on, we will repeat the same example using the fast Fourier FFT method and try to compare the time taken. And since it's a computational time, I cannot measure it by manually evaluating this. I can only tell the complexity is reduced to n log n when I do it. But to have an idea of the real saving in time, I need to use some processor. So let's once again take the help of MATLAB, and we will first compute the DFT used by sampling the signal and computing the DFT and then getting the spectrum. Then we'll repeat the same using the inbuilt FFT command and see what is the saving in time. So this is our first example towards measuring the saving in computation time. So this is what I have. I am having I'm taking n as say 2000, some large number 2000, and I'm taking my sampling interval as 1 by n and my sampling frequency as say 1 by ts, and my time is going only from 0 to 1, and my, let us say my signal frequency is say 400 hertz, and then I have my signal that is going to be samples of cos 2 pi fmt. So now I'm going to create my n cross n DFT matrix, and we know how to create it. This is just e to the power of minus j 2 pi n k by n. This is something we have been using so often, and it's running 2 for loops and computing it. Then once I get my DFT matrix, I'm going to multiply my input sequence by the DFT matrix, and then I get my DFT. So now here I want to know what is the time taken in computing this n cross n matrix. So I have put two commands. One is a tick command, which will start the computation time and the top command which will give the end of the computation time. So I will have an idea of what's the computation time for evaluating this this matrix and performing DFT. Later on, I want to observe the spectrum. So what I do is I'm just plotting the spectrum only for half because fs by 2. So instead of plotting from 0 to n, I'm plotting half the value. So n by 2. And because only half my n by 2 is what has any real significance, and the remaining is only a symmetry, uneven symmetry in the magnitude spectrum. So I am plotting the spectrum for half the values of n, and this is what I get. And then I'm my scaling. We know that this n scales to fs, and hence it is n value. So this is my frequency scaling that I'm doing, and I get the spectrum of the signal. Just for fun, I want to hear my signal as well. So I'm giving it to the command. So where I have my sample sequence x of n and then fs. So I can hear the signal, and I also know the spectrum of the signal. So this is what we'll do first. Then later on what we'll do is we'll compute the same endpoint DFT but using the FFT command. So FFT will be an efficient method of computing the DFT, and then we will know what is the saving in time. And if we want, we can also get the spectrum of the signal, but the spectrum will be the same. So let us see. So now I'm taking my n as say 2000, or let me take some large. Okay, yes, n is say 2000. And my signal frequency is 4000. So let's run the program. So this is what I have. I could hear the 400 hertz sine 400 hertz for sine wave, and the time taken in evaluating this has come to 0.976 seconds by using the DFT command. So now let us see what is the time taken without DFT but the FFT command. So let's run this block and see what is the time taken. See the time taken now. We have the same n, we have the same sequence x of n. Then we did an endpoint 2000 cross 2000 point DFT by using and then performing the DFT. The time taken was 0.976 seconds. But when I used the FFT command, because my computation time now becomes n log n, the computation time has now reduced to 0.004 seconds. So this is what this is an example to show that the FFT command definitely is an efficient method of getting the result. So we should not use the it is not recommended to write a code for actually computing DFT in this method. Let's take one more example. Say let me change the frequency now. Let me change it to say 300. My signal frequency is say 300, and let me take my n as even more larger. Let us say 4000. My signal is going to be of frequency 300 hertz, and let me take n is 4000. Let me mask these lines because I will do it later on, or of course I can always retain it. And let's run the program. See, now I have taken a signal of frequency 300 hertz. So if you look at the spectrum, we have a peak at 300. So from the spectrum, after computing the DFT, when I plot the spectrum, this is the result. And see now my n, what's the n I have taken? I have taken an n of 3000, 4,000. I've taken n of 4000. So I'm taking 4000 and I'm going to compute my DFT of 4000 cross 4000. And when I do that, the time taken is 4.48 seconds. Whereas when I do by using the FFT command, the time taken is only 0.005 seconds. So this is an example that was to show that the FFT command definitely uses less computation time. When I use the FFT, I'm going to have a very less computation time. And it depends on the processor that we use. Maybe if you run the same code on your processor, it's going to be different. For the same processor, when I can make a comparison between computing by the brute force method, what we call, the n cross n matrix and then evaluating DFT, or by using an efficient method, it is going to take a less computation time. Now, for further examples, we will take the inbuilt commands that have been captured, biosignals. Some signals captured by the human from the human body, and they have been captured in our college by the Department of Medical Electronics. So, as a first example, let us take the example of ECG signals that they have captured in the laboratory. So, this is the ECG waveform and so we are in the first step. We're walking through the program. We are first trying to read the data, and then we have in our data file we have first the time domain data. In the second column, the actual data is present. So we try to get the sampling interval and hence the sampling frequency, and then we try to get the FFT of the command, and then we do a mapping towards frequency of our FFT samples. So we are plotting the spectrum and the time domain signal. So let us look at the spectrum of the ECG signal. So this is our time domain capture. We see some recurring pattern. However, we cannot tell what are the frequencies actually present in the signal by looking at the ECG waveform. And now looking at the spectrum, after taking the FFT, we have just done a mapping to the frequency, and we find that we have frequencies present up to around 50 hertz. So the human body, the ECG signal, this is just one sample, we can't generalize, but they lie in the range of around, they go from 0 to around 50 hertz. And this is just by doing the simple FFT command, or computing the discrete Fourier transform. So next example we'll again take another biosignal, and which is the EMG. EMG once again captured in the Department of Medical Electronics in our college, and we read the data, and then we again compute the FFT and plot the spectrum. So let's have a look at the EMG data. So here, if you see the spectrum, it's having there is a null around 50 hertz, but then there are frequency components present. Even higher frequencies we have for the EMG. And this is a time domain plot. As a third example, we'll now see another example, and that is the mapping of our brain signals. The mapping of the signals in our brain, and that is the EEG. And these are captured using a BioPack. So here the signal is captured using the equipment BioPack, and any other facilities available, and anyone interested can visit the department, and their services are available for capturing and sharing any additional data. So here this data, the EEG data, it's captured in different columns, and we'll just have a look at it. This is the raw data. The raw data, the time in one column, we have the EEG, the alpha, beta, delta, and the theta measurements, and this is the time domain signal. And let us try to get the spectrum of each of these data and see how their frequencies are. So now to start off, let's just look at the alpha waveform. So each column I'm reading it, each column, the alpha is the third column, beta is the fourth column, the delta is the fifth, and so on. This is how, and each of them have a significance to the behavior. The alpha data is relaxed state, the beta is a cognitive alert, whereas the delta is the sleep state and so on. This is not my domain, but I'm just trying to capture the data and get the spectrum. So let's look at the spectrum of the alpha waves of our brain. So this is the time domain plot. We see some variations in our signal, the alpha waves. And now what's the spectrum? This spectrum, the alpha waves have they're centered around say 7 to 12 hertz. This is in frequencies in hertz. They are 10 hertz plus or minus 5 hertz. I mean, in this range, we have the alpha signal. We saw the time domain. No information can be captured, but by just doing the FFT or the discrete Fourier transform, we are able to get the spectral components present in the signal, and the experts will be able to tell the actual interpret these signals. So let's try. Say having seen alpha, let us now see the beta waves. So once again, this is a time domain signal, and let us now look at the spectrum. Now these beta waves have gone to a little higher frequency, and this is after doing some physical activity, and hence the frequency is little higher. They are going from around 15 to 30 hertz. Let's try next the delta. This is our the delta waveform captured, and in the time plot and in the frequency domain. This is almost like a sleep state, and in this state, if you see the frequency components are extremely low, around less than 4 hertz. And let's look at the theta waveform, which is just after I think. So this is a time domain plot as a signal as a function of time, and this spectral component is around 5 hertz. 5 hertz. So this example is taken to show that from time domain data we cannot interpret the frequency components present in the signal, but by performing the discrete Fourier transform, or the same in an efficient manner. So once we capture the data, then we can get the plot as a function of time, and when we compute the spectrum using the discrete Fourier transform or the fast Fourier transform, which is just an efficient method of computing the DFT, we get the spectral components. And we saw from the examples that we have just seen, we saw that our human body signals are somewhere going up to around 40 hertz. 40 hertz. Of course, the EMG had a little higher frequency, but alpha, beta, including the brain signals, could be captured. The alpha, beta, theta, and the delta waves, and each of them are specify the state of the brain. And of course, I'm not an expert to interpret this, but experts will be able to look at the spectrum and comment on the brain status of the brain, and hence the performance, the behavior of the person. So the example was just to show the so we saw that the human body signals had I think in one case we had a peak around 5 hertz. We had a peak around 10 hertz, and in one around 40 hertz. So the human body signals are essentially of low frequency, and these are the signals present in our body and can be captured and analyzed by using suitable equipment, and they are available in our in our institution in the Department of Medical Electronics. Sine wave. sine wave, we'll take a signal x of t is say cos 2 pi fmt, and we'll choose some n, which is going to be a very large value. N will also be identified as my sampling frequency fs. We'll take some suitable frequency fn, and we'll ensure that our sampling frequency fs is much larger than fm. We'll try to hear the cosine wave when we select a frequency in the audible range. So we'll hear the signal, and we'll also try to plot the signal in the time domain and we'll look at the spectrum. In addition, we shall try to later on add to the same signal. We'll add some noise and see the effect of added noise, and look at the spectrum when we add noise to the sine wave. So here I'm taking a signal. This is walking through the program. I'm considering some n which is large, and I'm setting my sampling frequency equal to this, and defining my time for a period of 1 second. And let us say I set my frequency to around 360 hertz, and then I'm going to generate a cosine wave, and I'm going to add noise. Of course, initially I'm not adding noise. I'm multiplying it by 0, and let us see the spectrum and also the plot, and we'll also hear the signal. So this is my cosine wave that we have taken for 360 hertz, and this is my initial sine wave. This is the spectrum of the signal. We get a peak at 360 hertz, and there was no noise added to it, so everything was fine. Let me just run the same. So now I have repeated by increasing the sampling frequency so that my waveform is smooth and it looks clear. The spectrum, of course, remains the same at 360 hertz because we are retaining the same frequency. Now what we'll do is we'll just add some noise to the same signal. We are not changing any other parameter. Let's add some noise and see what happens. Let us say I add a noise of a random noise, a Gaussian noise of length 1 of same length n. And I'm going to add it. Let us run and see the signal. So after adding the noise, this is the sine wave with the added noise. And let us look at the spectrum. Spectrum, you see now we have small strength present at all frequencies, and of course our original signal peak is intact. And we also heard the noisy sine wave. And later on, when we move to design of filters, we'll try to remove this noise from our signal and get back the original clear sinusoidal signal after passing it through a suitable filter. Some frequency, for example, say FM is 400 hertz, and let us say FC. FC is some other higher frequency, say 1200 hertz. And now what we'll do is we'll form another signal y of t given by the product of x of t into c of t. So let us see how the spectrum changes when I multiply two signals in time domain. So in time domain, I'm having a product, and let us see what happens in the frequency domain. So I'm taking two sinusoidal signals. We see the spectrum individually, and we'll also look at the spectrum of the product. So walking through the program, I'm just taking some large n for, I'll be computing the endpoint DFT. I'm defining my time for 2 seconds. And of course, I set my n equal to fs, and as mentioned, we are taking the low frequency signal of 400 hertz and a high frequency signal of 1200 hertz. And I'm just setting the amplitude of my high frequency to a larger value, 2 times this, and these are my two signals that I'm getting, x of t and c of t. And then I'm going to take the product. So we are going to compute the FFT of each of them, and then we just try to plot them. That's what we have here. We are plotting the signal in time and in the frequency domain, the product, and the signal and the product. The low frequency signal, the high frequency signal, and the product. So let's look at the result. Yes, let us walk through the program. We are trying to compute the DFT of some large value n, say 40,000. It's just picked up to keep it much higher than the frequencies that we are taking. So this is my low frequency signal of 400 hertz and my high frequency of say 1200 hertz. And this is my x of t generated with the frequency of FM, and whereas c of t generated with the frequency of fc. And then I'm trying to compute the product of the two signals. Then I'm computing the discrete Fourier transform of each of these signals. So let us look at these signals both in time and in the frequency domain. We just plot them as a function of time and as a function of frequency. Let us see the results. So our first one, we are trying to plot the time domain signal and in the corresponding spectrum. So if we see here a time domain signal, it's a cosine wave of 400 hertz. This is what we have in the time domain, and as we know, it has a spectrum. It has a spectrum of it has a peak at 1. So I'm just plotting the spectrum for only, not the complete spectrum, to avoid the symmetry. So we have a spectral component at 400 hertz. Next, we try to here we are plotting the high frequency cosine waveform, which we have taken as 1200 hertz, and as we see here, we have a peak at 1200 hertz. Now let us look at the product. This is the product. This is a product in time domain. This is the product of our low and high frequency waveform. But in the frequency domain, we multiplied signals of 400 hertz and 800. When we multiply, what are the spectral components we are getting? We are getting it as the sum and the difference. So 400, 1200 plus 400, that is, we have a peak at 1600. 1200 minus 400, that is a peak at 800 hertz. So this is what our observation. So when I multiply two sinusoidal signals, I get the spectral components as the sum and the difference of the two frequencies that we have considered, and hence our spectral components in the product, we are going to have 1200 plus 400, that is, we have a component at 600 hertz, and 1200 minus 400, that is 800 hertz. This is our observation. So multiplication in time domain actually leads to a frequency translation. And the entire modulation and broadcast communication is based on just this concept of frequency translation or multiplying in time domain. So we take all our low frequency signals, put it onto a high frequency sine wave, and then it becomes suitable for broadcast. So entire communication functions only because of this simple property of the discrete Fourier transform, which leads to multiplication leads to a frequency translation. Of course, the frequencies that were taken are very small, and this frequency would, depending on the broadcast frequency, it's going to be different. And this is actually known as the a form of modulation, which is known as the double sideband suppressed carrier, a form of modulation. We'll take a very simple example, a small extension of the earlier one, wherein instead of having just the product y of t, as our next example, for the same frequencies, we shall now take y of t as, say, the product plus the carrier also. We'll add the carrier and the product, and then let us see what happens to the spectrum. So now here, instead of having the product, in addition to the product, I also want to have the high frequency signal. So just a small change, product plus the addition. Otherwise, all other terms being similar. So of course, since we have not done any change with our time domain signal, our message signal remains the same, a low frequency. This is a high frequency signal at 1200 hertz. We have it, and since we added the high frequency signal as well, we have the spectral component corresponding to the high frequency 1200. And in addition, because of the product frequency translation, what we had 1200 plus 400 and minus 1200 minus 400, that is 800. These are the spectral forms. So when I add the high frequency signal onto it, I'm going to have that component also being present. And this form of modulation is what is this form of multiplication and addition is what is used in commercial amplitude modulation or broadcast communication. This is known as amplitude modulation. So these are examples to just show how important and how useful is the computation of the discrete Fourier transform. When all courses and all examples can be related to the DFT and well, as a next example, we shall consider, say, once again, say we have the signal x of t of, say, frequency cos, say, fmt, and say we have the signal c of t given by, say, cos 2 pi fct, where we continue having the same frequency, say, 400 hertz, and fc as, say, 1200 hertz. And then we saw that the product, if I try to compute the product x of t and c of t, I am getting components which is given by 1200 plus or minus 400. These are the frequency components present. So we got frequency components being 1600 hertz, 1600 hertz and 1600 hertz and 12 minus 4, that is 800 hertz. These are the frequency components that we got when we did the product. Now what happens if I take once again, that is I take the product, I take y of t, and once again I multiply it by the same cosine signal c of t. I'm going to take my product and I'm going to multiply the product again with my carrier, and let us see what happens now. But in principle, what should happen is I'm having 1600, so I'm having my 1200 plus or minus 1600 will be one set of frequencies, and another set of frequencies will be 1200 plus or minus minus 800. So this is going to give me, we are going to get four frequencies, 12 plus 16, that is 2800. Then 12 minus 16, that is going to be a 400. And then 12 plus 8 is going to be 20. And then 12 minus 8, again a 400. So we are getting frequency components at very high frequency, and we are also getting 400. And what is this 400? 400 happens to be our initial frequency that we started off with, 400 hertz. It's our lower frequency signal, the message. So by taking this product, and if I simply pass it through a low pass filter, I will get my signal x of t, which is given by cos 2 pi fmt. And this is what let us see this signal. Let us see this. Let us see this. So now quickly walking through the program, we have everything same. We have x of t, c of t, and then I'm getting I'm getting y of t as the product of x of t and c of t. And later on, I'm getting y of t, which is going to be a product of y of t and c of t. So I'm multiplying the signal with carrier twice, and let us see how the spectrum is, how the signal in time domain and the spectrum is. So this is in time domain, my original spectrum of the low frequency signal. This is 400 hertz. And this is my spectrum of the high frequency signal, 1200 hertz. And then this is the product of the product. I did product twice, and then this is a high frequency signal. So it's having frequency. We saw the spectral components that are present. It has spectral components at 20, 28, and 4. And hence, this is the time domain signal is two-filled. But then when I look at the spectrum, and when I plot the spectrum only up to about 2K, then I see that I have got my 400 hertz. So this is what happens. This is a process that happens in, we saw that when I multiply by a carrier, I'm doing modulation or I'm doing transmission. And when I multiply with the same signal, I get back my original signal. And this process is known as, this is what happens in any demodulation process, where we try to retrieve the original signal from which has been shifted to a high frequency to suit broadcast communication. Product of the product. This is in time domain. It has the 400 hertz component, and it has the 2000 and the 2800 100 component. So this is what we see in the spectrum. And what's the beauty of this result is, when I multiply twice, I have a very this component at 400 hertz, and if I can choose a filter, if I pass this product through a filter of a low frequency, of a suitable frequency, I can get back my 400 hertz component, and these two will get filtered out. And this is what this concept is what is used in the entire demodulation. So for modulation, for enabling long distance transmission, I put my signal on a high frequency sinusoidal signal, and I multiply with the same sinusoidal signal at the receiver, and I can pass it through a low pass filter and get back my message. The whole communication theory, long distance communication, all work on this simple concept of multiplying by a cosine signal. Well, having seen that the FFT is computationally efficient, we'll now take up some examples. Now here I'm going to take some audio signal uh, and then try to read the signal, capture the signal. And after getting the signal, any audio signal is just a sequence of numbers. And when we read an audio file, we also get the sampling frequency, the rate at which the data has been captured. Once we get this, we can hear the sound or the audio file that we capture by using the sound command. And for the same file, we also try to get we try to compute the FFT. We shall try to compute the FFT. And from FFT mapping, we know to map an endpoint DFT. We know that it is equivalent to N. And using this mapping, we will try to observe the spectrum of the signal. So that's, we're going to take an audio signal, read it, hear it, and see the spectrum of the signal. We'll just take few examples and just to see how the DFT is going to help us in getting the spectrum of the signal. So as a first example, so let's just quickly walk through the program. Here I have some audio files which have the extension of dot wave. And using the audio read command, I'm going to read any audio file, and I get my audio data and along with the sampling frequency at which the data has been captured. So once I get these two parameters, I read the file. Then if I want to hear it, I just have to give the same input, that is read the audio data along with the sampling frequency, and I can hear the captured signal. Next, I'm going to convert my get the length and compute the endpoint DFT, of course using the FFT methods, because it's going to be efficient. I'm going to compute the endpoint DFT of the audio file, and then I use this frequency scaling. As mentioned earlier, I'm going to plot the spectrum only for half the length, because only that is of physical significance, and I'm mapping my fs over n. So if we know that fs is equal to n, so using this frequency scaling, we get the we can convert the endpoint DFT to suitable frequency. Now I'm just plotting. I take my f versus the absolute value of my FFT. And since I've taken only half, I'm plotting it from 1 to f, and the magnitude spectrum we get. And I'm also trying to look at the signal, how it looks at in time domain. So I'm plotting the same signal as a function of time in time domain. So that's all. So we take a signal, we take an audio file, plot it as a function of time, hear the audio signal, and also get its spectrum and plot, observe the spectrum. So let's take one. This is a audio sample of one of our students. We collected the sample of all our students and asked them to get the spectrum as part of the activity. Here I'm trying to play the one sample speech of our student, Bharat.
The reason for the anomaly was not known. The logical reasoning for such.
So this is the audio that we have just heard. And now when I plot it in time domain, he has just spoken a sentence, and his sentence that he has spoken for five seconds. So the time for which he has recorded his speech is 5 seconds. And this is how the time domain signal is. As you can see, we cannot get any information from the time domain signal, because although that is what we understand. We understand the time domain signal, but then by looking at it, I cannot tell what are the frequency components present in the signal. With a simple DFT command and mapping it to the frequency, I am able to get the spectrum of the signal. And how is it? If I look here, the most of the frequency spectral components are in the range of around 100 to around 3000 100 hertz to 3000 kilohertz, and later on the strength of the of his speech is reduced for higher frequency. So his speech is essentially in the range, what he has spoken, that small sentence is like up to around 3 kilohertz. So let's take one more example. Say I have a sample recording of the violin. Let's see how it hears and how is the time domain signal and the spectrum. So this is my time domain signal. The signal captured for 2.5 seconds. This is the time domain signal. Its magnitude goes up, down, and the violin. And how about the spectrum? Now you see the spectrum. We do have the frequency, significant frequency component up to 6 kilohertz, but we also have components around 10 or 12 kilohertz as well. So we cannot speak with these high frequencies. We cannot speak human being. We cannot speak with the 6,000, 6K or 8 kilohertz or 10,000 kilohertz, but we can hear. We can hear these frequencies, and so that is why we need the help of instruments to generate these high frequency components which we can hear. Let's take one more example, an audio example. So this is another music. And it's this is the time. Amplitude goes up, down, up, down, up, down. This is a magnitude, and again the time for which this audio file has been recorded is 4.5, around 5 seconds. And let us look at its spectrum. Its spectrum, it has frequency components up to around 3000 hertz, and later on the spectral amplitude is almost nil. So this is what these are few examples that have been taken to show that an audio signal, just a sequence of numbers. Now if I want to see how these numbers look like, so let's just the audio that we just heard. Let's see how are these numbers for few values, say 1 to 10. I just see the first 10 values. See, it's just a sequence of numbers. These are sequence of numbers, and these numbers create music when we hear. And what's the sampling frequency that has been used in this case? The sampling frequency has been 16,000 kilo, 16 K or 16,000 hertz. So let's hear it once again. So these examples show that a sequence of numbers, the audio signals are also sequence of numbers, and these numbers we can hear using the suitable command. An audio signal is also a sequence of numbers. A sequence of numbers x0, x1, etc. that goes to a large, and if you just see the size of the of our audio file, we have taken it for around 5 seconds, and if you see my n, it is almost 75,000 samples I'm having, that too for a time that was as small as less than 5 seconds. So we have 75,000 samples My sampling frequency was sampling frequency fs in this example was 16 kilohertz, and the number of samples I had was almost 75,000 samples. So xn is almost 75,000 samples. So this is just to show the complexity of a problem, and the time duration I've taken is only 5 seconds with the sampling rate and the 75,000, and I'm trying to hear, and this sequence of numbers I can give it to I can hear, I can plot it as a function of time, x of t as a function of time. I can also plot the spectrum. And how do I get the spectrum? Simply by computing the endpoint DFT, and I get the spectrum. I can get the spectrum. And we found that uh, the spectral components, I mean, human speech, we just took one sample, but typically human speech goes up to around 5 kilohertz. We speak up to around 5 kilohertz. And whereas instrument, we took an instrument, and instruments can go even up to 10, 12 kilohertz. Instruments can give me up to 10 kilohertz or 12 kilohertz, and this we can hear them, but we cannot produce. We cannot produce, but we can hear them. The next example, what we'll do is, now having seen the examples in audio, we took examples in audio, and we took an audio file, we read the audio file, we heard it, we plotted as a function of time, and we also saw the spectrum. Now what we'll do is we will generate some audio files and see whether we can hear it. So let's try to generate simple single frequency waves. And let me consider my single frequencies as, say, I'm going to generate very low frequency, and then let me hear. Say 240 hertz, and let us say 270 hertz, say 300 hertz, and let me then say 320 hertz, and say 360 hertz, and say 400 hertz, and say 450 hertz, and let us say the 480 hertz. So I'm starting with 240 hertz, and I'm going to have some frequencies, and I'm going to have, say, that my last frequency as 480 hertz. So I'm having this 480 is the twice of 240. Let me just generate this waves and let me hear it, just for fun, just for fun. So let's take the example. Let's just walk through the program. So now I'm taking say, and my sampling frequency is going to be, say, 8,000, 8,000. And now I'm having my signals of frequency as mentioned, 240, 270, or low frequency signals that are going in certain steps. And I'm generating each of them. I'm going to generate, this is not a good, I could have put in a loop, but then just for ease in understanding, I put it in this manner. I'm getting my 8 signals, each of different frequencies, 240, 270, and so on. These are the frequencies that we have. We're generating the cosine signals, each of duration 1 second. And then I'm concatenating all of them one after the other. So my 8 frequencies are here, and I'm also trying to flip it and put them one behind. So it goes from 1 to 8 and then 8 to 1. And then I'm computing the length of my total length is now going to be large, and whatever is the length, for that length I'm going to compute my FFT just to get the spectrum of the signal as well. And we plot the spectrum, and instead of plotting for half, I'm just plotting it for certain initial frequencies, and I'm also going to hear the sound that we are generating. So let's run the program. So we just have the frequencies. They're all low frequency signals, 240, 270, 300, and so on, going up to 480, and then coming back below. So each of them, and then let's hear it. saw now, we generated few low frequency signals. We put them one after the other, and then we tried to hear it, and we have heard it. And now we also saw the spectrum. We get the same spectrum. We have taken some 240, 270, 300, 320, and so on. These are the frequencies that we have taken, and we have got the spectrum we heard. So this is just to show that I can synthesize the sound. So once I know, this example is taken to show that if I know, I mean, musical instruments are going to produce signals of certain frequencies, and if I know the frequency, I can generate the frequency using a code because I know what my audio signal is. So this is just, I'm not a musician, I'm very bad in, but this is just to show that we can synthesize music or synthesize notes, and we can hear them. And of course, we need a good system. Let me run the same program. Let me take a little larger sampling frequency and let us see if there any change in the quality of the signal. So this was, instead of taking a sampling frequency of 8 kilohertz, I took a sampling frequency of 12K and we heard it. So this was an example. They appreciate the discrete Fourier transform. So we saw examples of signals that we generated, and we also saw the real bio examples by using the ECG and the EEG. And we saw that in time domain data, the signal is unknown. Usually the signal is unknown in time domain data. But when I do the spectrum, I'm able to get useful information, and I can design and process. I can amplify certain components if I want. I can remove certain frequency components if I do not desire. And so, although what is of use and benefit to us is only the time domain signal x of t, we need to move into the frequency domain to appreciate the concepts, appreciate the content present, and then we can process it and we can get a better signal because we're able to understand the signal better by going into the frequency domain. So that is why it's normally said a signal is unknown in time domain, but we know the signal in frequency domain. For example, I do not know if I take my speech, definitely we do not know what the content is going to be, but what we know is I cannot speak with more than 5 kilohertz. So that in most cases, the frequency range of the input signals are all known. That is why the analysis in frequency domain becomes important, and that is what this entire set of modules were focused on. Now, in the next module, what we shall see is the design of filters. We shall start off with the design of FIR filters, and later on we'll take up the design of IIR filters. So we take these signals XN, pass them through a filter, and then we'll observe the output YN. So today we have seen a noisy sine wave, and we shall design our filter, take this noisy sine wave through the filter and see the filtered output. Thank you.